Atoms are the smallest basic unit of matter. They consist of protons, electrons, and neutrons. Everything that has mass and takes up space is made out of atoms. The first person who conceived this idea of small building blocks was around 400 BC. This was the Greek philosopher Democritus. He thought that matter could be broken down to an extent. He believed at this extent the particles were indivisible and indestructible. There was no technology to prove this, of course. He called it atomos, meaning indivisible. The first actual model theory of an atom that is most comparable to today's model was by John Dalton. This was much like Democritus, only he had the evidence. He too said that all particles were indivisible, and elements were characterized by the mass of their atoms. To explain, all atoms of the same element have identical weights, and atoms of different elements have different weights. When elements react, their atoms combine in simple whole number ratios. Dalton reasoned that compounds have a fixed ratio because of the rearrangement of the atoms. The electron was first discovered in 1898 by Sir John Joseph Thomson. Thomson was doing experiments with the cathode ray tubes. Within these tubes, fluorescent rays of light would grow from side to side. It was thought that these rays were the atoms themselves. This was until it was hypothesized that the atoms were positively charged matter and there were negatively charged matter within the atom. He believed that the electrons were evenly distributed inside the atom that was all positively charged, much like raisins within a pudding. So he called the model the plum pudding model. Thomson's atom was different from Dalton's model because it included something smaller than an atom, the electron, and the atom was composed of these electrons. Ernest Rutherford was a student of J.J. Thomson who was working on an experiment to prove his teacher's theory. In his experiment, Rutherford had a thin foil made of gold and shot alpha particles at it. He was expecting them to shoot straight through the foil. They did, however, many of them bounced back at an angle or straight at the ray. So it turned out that it proved Thomson's theory wrong, and so Rutherford came up with a new theory called the planetary theory. In this theory, the electrons were on the outside of the atom nucleus, with orbit composed of just sitting on the inside of the atom, like in the plum pudding. The Bohr model, introduced by Niels Bohr in 1913, depicts the atom as a small, positively charged nucleus surrounded by electrons that travel in a circular orbit around the nucleus, similar in the structure to the solar system, but with attraction provided by the electrostatic forces rather than gravity. It was a lot like Rutherford's, only Bohr gave Rutherford's atomic model a shell structure which gave electrons corresponding to specific orbits and a discrete energy level. Erwin Schrödinger added the final piece of the puzzle of electron arrangement around the nuclei of atoms. He suggested that electrons behave in a wave-like manner rather than just particles, and that their exact location within the orbit cannot be precisely calculated. It may surprise you, but yes, typical science logos that show atoms with clearly defined electron orbits are now considered obsolete. The cloud model basically is a cloud-like region where the electron is likely to be found on the outside, and the nucleus in the center, with neutrons and protons. So that is the atom from the first thought in 400 BC till now.